Hey everybody, y'all come on in. I'm Paula Deen, and today I'm gonna give you the lowdown on low country cooking. But first, we gotta go down the road for some of my favorite farm-style sherbet, but that's just dessert. Next, it's back to the house to pop this big old ham and a couple of juicy yams in the oven and let them set while we work on our turnip greens and some classic cornmeal dumplings that are simply to die for. And finally, the angels will be singing for these creamy squares of clouds and sunshine. So kick it into low gear and call in the neighbors, cause today the lady is cooking low and slow. Hi, today's program is all about some favorite foods of mine that I grew up on in the South. But don't ever underestimate our sweet tooth. Before I get started, we're gonna go get some heavenly treats. So come on with me. What you doing, Joe?
Hey, Paula, how are you today?
You making me a banana split.
You betcha.
You knew us coming, didn't you? What kind of flavors do you have in there?
Well, we have orange sherbet, raspberry sorbet, and strawberry ice cream.
You're gonna help me eat this, though, aren't you? Surely you didn't make
I
this
hope you need
for
help.
just me. Let me come down here and get some. Now, what did you say this was? Tangerine?
That's orange sherbet.
Orange sherbet. That's what I've come for today.
I'm gonna make you some fresh.
Oh, that's too bad. Have to have fresh ice cream.
The first thing we're gonna do is put our ingredients in up here. And the first thing we're gonna need is a little bit of milk.
You're using whole milk, aren't you, Joe?
Oh yeah, we're gonna add some water.
Uh-huh.
And then we're gonna add our sugar. This is what gives us all our flavor. We're gonna add those right in here also.
I bet that's very, very powerful, isn't it?
Yes, they both are pretty powerful. It's quite a bit of flavoring because you want to really juice it up a little.
All right. Ready? Is it soup yet, Joe?
It looks ready, Paula. Put this inside for you. Pack that up. And you're gonna be all set.
Joe, you've got me a perfect ending to a perfect meal. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'll see you later.
You come back and visit us again.
I'll do it. Do y'all think I got enough ice cream? That will feed a family of 4. All right, the very first thing that we're going to start with now is one of a Southerner's probably favorite meats, and that's fresh pork. And I think we're going to go ahead and put him in a tray so I can be just as sloppy as I want to be. This had to have been a mighty fat hog. Isn't he just beautiful? What we're going to do to him now is very, very simple. I'm going to sprinkle him with soy sauce and just kind of rub that into him. Y'all know how I like to rub my meat and touch my meat. And I like to rub the seasonings into it. If I didn't rub my meat, look, it would just sit there and roll off. I want it to get into it. Now we're going to add our house seasoning. And y'all will hear me say 100 times what our house seasoning is. It's a cup of salt, a fourth of a cup of black pepper, and a fourth of a cup of garlic powder. So we're just going to coat him good with that. Because like I said, that salt is going to kind of form a crust on him. We're going to throw him in the oven, and we're going to put him in a 325-degree oven. And we're going to cook him approximately 20 minutes a pound. And because we're cooking him in a slower oven, we're not even going to have to cover him. And I've got one in the oven that's been cooking for about 4 hours now. And how beautiful. Now you're going to want to open the oven periodically and just spoon your juices on top of him. Isn't he just beautiful? Can you tell why us Southerners love pork? It's going to be so good. The reason I like this cut of meat is because 3 nights in a row you can have 3 totally different meals. Tonight we're going to slice it and serve it warm, but tomorrow at lunch we're going to have a nice fat sliced pork roast sandwich with lettuce and tomato and onions, and then the next night I can chop it up, toss it in barbecue sauce, and we've got barbecue sandwiches. So it makes it so versatile, it's wonderful. And while that's sitting there resting, we're going to start on our sweet potato yams. Now I have put these yams in the oven and baked them for about an hour. And I've let them cool long enough for me to remove the skin. And see how it'll just peel right off for you. All right, and we're just going to line them up like that. Then I just slice them all at one time because we're going to be pouring sweet sauce over them. And I want them to go all the way through. To make our sauce is ever so simple. We are going to make what they call a simple syrup. And we've started with boiling water, brown sugar, and I want y'all to take note of this now. I'm only using a half a stick of butter, which you have to admit is unusual for me. We're going to drop a couple of little pieces of cinnamon stick in there. And we're going to put a little fresh grated nutmeg. Once I discovered fresh grated nutmeg, I just can't use any of that packaged ground stuff. This makes it so much better. All we got to do now is add an orange strip. And don't leave this out. If you have to run to the store to buy an orange, by all means do it. We got one last thing to put in here. Old number 7. And we're going to put about a third of a cup, and I'm going to use our little butter cup to measure. And that looks just about right. So we've got all of our ingredients in there. All we're going to do at this point is put a lid on it and let it simmer for about 30 to 45 minutes. We want this to start turning to a syrup, thickening up, just like the syrup that we'd eat on our pancakes. Rennie! My cooking buddy, Rennie. Actually, Rennie's my eating buddy. Okay, I have a pot here that already made a syrup. So all we're going to do now is pour our syrup over our potatoes. We don't want to be stingy with our syrup. We want to give those sweet potatoes plenty of juice to cook in. Don't those look delicious? So we're going to put these in the oven and we're going to bake these for about 30 to 45 minutes. But while we're waiting on that, I've got some ready over here on the counter that I think are ready for us to taste. Oh, and you can see how the tops have kind of caramelized on us. Oh, they look perfectly heavenly delicious. And you know, I can't eat a yam without a little piece of pig to go with it. So far, so good. Oh. You know, this reminds me of my mother's kitchen at Easter. Look at that. It's out of this world. But now, I've just got to taste some of that pork along with it. It's just perfect along with the yams. Y'all don't leave me, because next we're going to make some out-of-sight turnip greens and cornmeal dumplings to go along with this southern meal. So y'all come back. Look at all these beautiful greens I have over here. Wonderful fresh turnip greens. They do require a little care though. The first thing we're going to do is strip the greens away from the stem. Where the green starts, you just stop and pull, and it's out of there. And before you know it, you'll have a big bowl full, and you're going to think, oh my gosh, I don't have a pot big enough for these. Well, let me tell you a little secret about turnip greens. You can have a barrel this big and that deep, and when you get through cooking them, it's going to go down to about this size right here. The other thing I want to tell you about greens is they can be very, very gritty because they grow down into the dirt. So you're going to want to make sure you wash them very, very good, get all that grit out of them. So we've got our greens, and over here in this pot, I've had ham hock cooking for about an hour and a half. Now, if you would like, you can certainly swap out ham hock for smoked turkey wings. And you can find these in any of your grocery stores. They make a great seasoning, and you will have to cook them about the same length of time that you will the ham hock. Now, these greens that I have up here that I've destemmed have been washed 3 times. They're nice and clean. So here we go. That water's boiling. We're just gonna put them down in that broth, and you can see how quickly they'll break down. So depending on the greens, they could take anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes to an hour, depending on whether they're young or they're older greens. So you'll just have to test your greens. And while those are cooking, I'm going to be preparing the roots that we're going to put in there. So to prepare your root, just trim both ends off and peel them like so. These take about 12 to 15 minutes. So we'll add those towards the very end of our cooking time. And we'll just slice them just like we would a potato, a cottage potato. Just like that. Now I'm going to come back to our pot now that our greens have kind of wilted down, and I'm going to add a chicken bouillon cube. And remember, this contains a lot of salt too, so I'm going to drop that in. And one other thing I'm going to do to these turnip greens that my grandmother Paula did not do, I'm going to put a little ground ginger in them, just a pinch. All right, so I'm going to cover these up, and while they're cooking, I'm going to go on to make my grandmother's cornmeal dumplings. When I was cooking my turnip greens, I put in a little extra broth so that I could have the extra broth to pull out. So we're going to mix up our cornmeal dumplings by starting with a white, medium ground, plain cornmeal, a little bit of salt, a little bit of chopped onion, and I like adding a little green onions. They just add a lot of interest and color. And 1 egg. All right, now we're just going to pour a little bit of that broth, and you'll want to do a little bit at the time because remember, you can always add 2, but it's hard to pull it back out. But see how simple that was? So all we're going to do is pick up a spoonful of our dough and mold it, and we're just going to drop those down in the hot boiling liquor, and it seems to be holding together nicely. Now we're going to let those cook for, oh gosh, maybe about 10 minutes. It really doesn't take them very long because we're going to let them boil pretty good. Oh, look at that pot of turnip greens. Now I've added those sliced turnip roots. They've cooked, and look how beautiful they are. Now I'm going to take our cornmeal dumplings, And I'm just gonna lay them around on the greens, just like Granny taught me to do. How wonderful do they look? I wanna make sure I get me a little piece of everything. Talking about putting some South in your mouth, this is it. And then I'm gonna grab me a corn stick. They're so good. But there's still a sweet ending to all this, so don't y'all leave me. When I was a little girl, I think my very favorite ice cream in the whole entire world was called a Dreamsicle. It had a white vanilla center, and it was covered with an orange sherbet, and I just loved them. I thought that they were named appropriately. So we're gonna recreate that Dreamsicle by very simply making us a layer of orange sherbet. Now we're gonna make our bottom layer, which is actually going to wind up our top layer. We're going to make it about an inch thick. I've softened this sherbet so we can easily get it into our bowl. And then we're going to come with our next layer, about an inch deep, and do the vanilla ice cream. Just kind of take your finger and work your ice cream to form that next layer. All right, so here we go with another sherbet layer. We're just going to kind of slide him right off the spoon. All right, we're going to finish up now with the vanilla layer, and it's actually going to be the bottom. All right, we've smoothed him out. Now we're just going to cover him with wax paper and put him into the freezer and let him stay until he's good and hard. And I have one right here that's ready. So we're going to see what our Dreamsicle tastes like, see if it's what we remember. I'm going to invert him onto this plate. And you can see he's still sitting in the container. So just in case that happened, I had a rag over here soaking in warm water, and I'm just going to lay it on top of this. And that should release the ice cream from the bowl. See how pretty and how easy he just slipped right out of our mold? All I'm gonna do now to garnish him is just put a little fresh mint in there. And look at this fresh orange zest. How pretty is that? This dessert looks like we've gone to a lot of trouble, but in reality we haven't. And so before he melts, I think I ought to taste him though, don't you? And see if my Dreamsicle is a reality or a dream. I'm 6 years old again. It's out of this world. Y'all stick around because coming up next, I got a few tips to share with you. Before I leave y'all today, I want to just share with you a few tips that might make your southern meal go just a little bit smoother. Moving on down to our meats, the kind of meats that you cook your greens in. My first preference is ham hock, but if you can't find it for some reason and you can't find the smoked turkey wings, you can always get a nice smoked slab of bacon. You can slice this in thick strips and fry it up in your pan. Get the seasoning out of it and then add your water. And to add just a little extra zest and crunch to your sweet potatoes, you can take pecans or even walnuts and just crush them up and toss them over your potatoes. Let's talk about greens for a second. There's a lot of different greens that you can cook, but to be true to my heritage, I have to say that I prefer collards, turnips or mustard. The mustard green is even tartar than the turnip green, and it'll make you a fabulous pot of greens. I hope that I've managed to bring a little Savannah sunshine to y'all with my Southern comfort food. The yams are so good, and the pork roast, and don't forget the turnip greens and cornmeal dumplings with that ham hock in there. And look at all the things that you can do with that pork roast. And don't forget the delectable Dreamsicle dessert. So until we eat again, America, best dishes from my kitchen to yours.